Welcome to Whiskey One, the channel for the novice, the curious, and the connoisseur. I'm Whiskey One, and today we're going to get into a little Old Elk Cigar Cut bourbon, that is. So stick around. Whiskey fam, sit down and grab a dram. Let's get into this latest release of some Old Elk. And before I do, I need to do a quick shout out to Justin Gleason. He's the one that hooked it up and got me the rest of this bottle so that I could do a little review and share with all of you guys watching, of course. So thanks, Justin, for sharing. Now, I'm gonna get pouring and talk a little bit about this release with all of you guys. This is a 2023 bottling, and it's a blend. If you guys are into blends, you're certainly going to enjoy this one. And one thing I'm going to kind of start off with is there seems to be a bit of popularity around cigar blends, cigar cut, you name it. Anything to do with bottling whiskey that pairs well, or lets you know that it's going to pair well with a cigar. Now, me personally, this is going to be my first tasting of the cigar cut. You can find other whiskeys out there. Joseph Magnus definitely comes to mind. They do have a cigar blend bourbon, and although I haven't had it, folks that have rant rave that it's a really good whiskey. Now, I do enjoy a cigar from time to time. I'm not a big cigar connoisseur or aficionado, but my good friend Justin, he is, and he definitely recommended this for me to try. And like I said, I'm really glad that he saved a little bit of that bottle so that I could share with all you guys. Now, Old Elk is based out of Fort Collins, Colorado. So for those of you that may not know much about it or see it in your area, you can buy these online. Now, when it comes to the cigar cut, it's a little bit more limited. So you may have to search a little bit, do a little hunting just to find it. It does retail at about 150 bucks. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, I highly recommend that you follow us on Instagram, where you find a lot of my written reviews, have different postings about different whiskeys that are not featured on the channel. You can also find us on Patreon at Whiskey One Channel. I'll leave a link here in the video and in the description. So if you guys do enjoy the channel and you want to be able to support, definitely hit us up. We'd have different tiers for you guys that want to do different benefits or contribute a certain amount. So let's go ahead and get started with overall presentation. The color on this is a good amber orange, burnt orange hue on the glass. I'm drinking out of a Norland today just so I could show off those legs with all of you. Now, so far, it leaves a nice little lip right on the brim of that whiskey, and I'm starting to see some nice long thick legs ooze down the glass. Now, I'm also going to leave a little information about the blend itself. It is a mixture of bourbon that started out at 6 years, and then it was aged for a year and a half, I believe, in the sherry cask, and a little over a year in the Armagnac cask, and then about 3 to 8 and 3 to 6 months in the port and cognac cask. And then they basically married all of those finished bourbons into one cigar blend. So on the nose, let's see what this has. Okay, fruity, very fruity, a bit of leather. And if you guys nose your whiskey before you get into it, really, you're enjoying it before you get to salivate and quench that thirst. But nosing for me is an art form. I get into it because I like to dissect it, pick it apart, spend some time with it. I'm usually in no rush to drink whiskey and finish what's in the glass. So I do take my time. I encourage you guys to do the same. And I think you guys that enjoy a cigar definitely like to take your time as well. So I think this right off the bat would be something that you would enjoy. So like I said, you get a bit of a bouquet, if you will, of different fruits. Now, if you're not too familiar with Cognac or Armagnac, essentially those are distilled spirits from fruit. Armagnac and Cognac tend to be made from grapes. And then your sherry, right, your port wines, those are gonna be your very fruity, very sweet type of wine. So you have a little bit of like distilled spirits that were aged in cask, and then you also have wine spirits that were aged in different casks as well. Now for the sherry, what I will tell you is this: sherry and port tend to be very fruit forward, red fruits. Port is a fortified wine, or tends to be, so it's a little bit more robust, more profound as far as like bold flavor that you get right on the nose. But when it comes to Armagnac and Cognac, they tend to leave off some orchard fruits in spite of being made from grapes. And that's what I'm getting here. And that's the only reason I went into depth about the different casks. But going back to it, you get a good amount of oak. It's not a very old whiskey. Like I said, it starts off as a 6-year bourbon and spends a little bit more time maturing in that secondary finishing. But it does feel like a nice amalgam of orchard fruits, dark berries. You get some chocolate out of this. And it feels dark, a little musty. And I think that usually is coming from something like a sherry wine or a port wine. Now I have heard folks that they're not really into wine finished bourbon. Those are usually going to be your purists that really don't like bourbon and anything other than, you know, charred American oak. But let's go ahead and give this a taste. Cheers. Wow. Okay. Sure, you get bourbon, a lot of caramel, a lot of salted caramel. This feels a little briny, and it's probably coming from those secondary finishes. So there's a good amount of minerality. So you get that salted caramel, of course. You get a little oak, leather, and a lot of the components that you typically get from a bourbon. You also get a little seasoned oak, you know, some spices, some baking spices. Right now, I'm getting just a light, very light amount of anise, but I get cinnamon and I get, you know, a little bit of winter spices. So you guys that are looking forward to the fall season are probably gonna enjoy this a lot. But once you get past the bourbon, right, its true identity, now you start to feel a lot more fruitiness. The fruitiness is what really hangs on to the palate. I feel like there's this initial rush of bourbon, but then what lingers and stays on that palate, coats the palate, it's very oily, is a lot of fruits, dark fruits. I'm gonna take one more sip. To me, this is an interesting take on bourbon because, you know, I've already gotten accustomed to, you know, your vanillas, your caramels, oak, and leather from certain and most bourbons. And of course, you get your baking spices and your cinnamon punch, right? But this isn't just a one-trick pony. I feel like the blend itself didn't like do so much that it lost its character. It lost its sense of identity when it comes to being a bourbon. You do get a nice layered approach, right, to this style of bourbon, which is more of a blend of different finishes. Now, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say on some of the Old Elk bourbon finishes that are out there. They do have standalone cognac finished, Armagnac, port, sherry. I have those bottles. I've reviewed a few of those on Instagram and Facebook. So if you're curious on what those are like, you know, check those out. I did do a Armagnac finish on YouTube, so also check that out. I'll put a link here in this video. But I'm interested in your thoughts. Do you feel like, you know, the secondary finishes kind of takes away from the character of the bourbon, or just adds an extra layer to it? Does it make it more interesting for you? I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say. I'm gonna take one more sip, get into the finish, and wrap things up as far as who does this speak to. So cheers again. So once you start taking return sips, the fruitiness of it starts to develop a little bit more, starts to show itself. It becomes a little bit more profound and feels closer to a cognac. It does feel closer to an Armagnac. For those of you that are into Cognac and Armagnac, I think this will resonate a little bit more with you guys. I feel like these are the qualities, the orange rind, the orchard fruit side of it. You know, sort of like a little bit of pulp, you know, mixed in with your cocktail or something like that. That this really starts to feel like a citrus blend. It's got a little bit of dark fruits to it as well. You know, your stone fruits are in here, but I really feel like the Cognac and the Armagnac really starts to like show itself more with return sips. As far as the finish, at first that finish is like a little bit on that medium side. It doesn't hang on a lot, but it certainly lets you know that the flavors are there, they stick around for a little bit, but every time I go back with return sips, it hangs on a little bit longer. The spice develops a little bit longer and it builds up a little bit of heat. And I really like this. Now, as far as, do I feel like this is a cigar cut? To me, I feel like the cigar cut is more of a marketing gimmick. Let's be honest. Is this a great whiskey? Yes. I don't want you guys to feel like I'm knocking this or anything like that. This is a great whiskey. Is it a cigar blend or something like pairs well with the cigar? I'm gonna leave that up to the cigar aficionados to say, but you know, there's plenty of whiskeys that really do blend well with cigars. Bourbon is one of them. And, you know, I think bourbons in general pair well with cigars all by themselves. This adds some extra layers to your bourbon, and it's probably gonna add extra layers to your overall experience if you're smoking a cigar. So I think it would pair well, yes. I just think that there's a little bit of marketing that's happening here that I think on the whole, this does a good job. This is a great whiskey. I just don't know if like this is the cigar smoker's whiskey or the cigar smoker's bourbon. I think having those extra layers certainly doesn't hurt. Now, as far as who do I think this speaks to, the bottle itself is definitely a connoisseur bottle. This speaks to the whiskey connoisseur. One, because it is a little rare, it is limited, and there's a lot going on in here that I think the average drinker, maybe somebody who's getting started, is really gonna miss. They're not even gonna catch the different layers. They may not even pay attention or care for them. But I think the connoisseur is really gonna pick up on it and take their time with it. And I feel like this is the ideal bottle for your connoisseurs that are out there. I do recommend it. Definitely gets my stamp of approval. 100%. I did see these in Arizona. So I know that it's out there. I think there was a Total Wine that we went into. They had these on the shelf. So if you guys are looking to get a bottle, I don't think it'll be difficult to find, but I didn't see these on the actual Old Elk website, unfortunately. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. You got to learn a little bit about the cigar cut and giving you some insight on whether you should get it. Now, here at Whiskey One, it's about the one you enjoy. Cheers.